I'm Stephanie Levy. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Anthropology, and welcome to the Levy Human Biology Lab. Here we investigate questions around human variation in metabolism. Why do some people have fast metabolism? Why do some people have slow metabolism? How can we look at lifestyle, diet, and evolutionary factors to try and solve this mystery? And what I think is really exciting about this place is we get to integrate two types of approaches to solving this question. So on one side of the lab, we have equipment dedicated to human energetics. This is the study of human energy expenditure. And so we have techniques for measuring how many calories does the body store and how many calories is the body using. And then what's cool is that on the other side of the lab, we have a wet lab. And on the wet lab side, we have equipment for measuring biomarkers in biological samples. That means we can look at hormones and other molecules to try and understand the mechanisms that are regulating our metabolism. So this way we can connect the regulating mechanisms within our bodies to our measurements of energy expenditure, to our measurements of how many calories the body is burning. So one class that I regularly teach is Anthropology 105. It's a large introductory course that's required for all human biology majors. And what I love about this class is that students usually come to me at the end of the class and say that they really enjoyed taking the concepts that they had learned from other science classes, their biology class, their chemistry class, and then connecting them to the actual human body and understanding its broader significance in my class. Human evolution, where does human biological variation come from? What is unique about the human life course? And how can we apply these lessons to understanding disease? Which actually brings me to another class I love to teach, which is evolutionary medicine. And this class is all about evolutionary theory and how can we use evolutionary theory to understand why humans get sick and to develop new ideas about how to prevent disease and treat disease. And in this class, we also discuss the limitations of this perspective. Did you know that newborn babies can't shiver? This is because their muscle is really underdeveloped. Instead, babies rely entirely on their brown adipose tissue to produce heat. So most of us, when we think about adipose tissue or fat, they're thinking about white adipose tissue. That's the most prevalent form of fat on the body. That's the type of fat that's storing excess energy in fat vacuoles. Brown adipose tissue is really special because not only is it storing excess energy, it also has a really high concentration of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. And this high concentration of mitochondria makes the brown fat, the brown adipose tissue, really metabolically active, and it gives it this brownish color. And so when a baby feels cold, its nervous system sends a signal to the brown adipose tissue to use that excess energy to produce heat. Now, for a really long time, doctors and researchers had assumed that we lose our brown fat as we age. But just in the last 20 or so years, it's been discovered that some adults retain their brown fat. And not only do some adults retain their brown fat, but adults with more brown fat tend to have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So the question then becomes, why do some adults have brown fat and others don't? So my work has tried to address this question, and our early results indicate that maybe environmental conditions during development, early in life, may be important for shaping variation in brown adipose tissue in adulthood. So I'm very fortunate to collaborate with a university in Siberia where it's super duper cold. And what we found was that in this region of the world, a region called Yakutia, where the temperatures drop below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit in the wintertime, people that spent more time outside in the cold as children and were exposed to lower temperatures as children had more brown fat activity as adults. So perhaps these early life environments are really important for shaping brown adipose tissue and disease risk later in life. So I'm looking forward to continuing to investigate this here in New York, where people grow up all over the world and then come to the city and have been exposed to lots of different temperatures and to other places in the world as well. I love my lab. It's like a dream because there's really not that many places where you can combine these two different types of techniques, the human energetics methods with the wet lab analyses of biological samples. And I think the combination of these two approaches is really powerful for understanding variation in metabolism and cardiometabolic disease risk. My first day of teaching at Hunter College was for a big intro class on the human species, Anthropology 105. And I was a little nervous because the class had 150 students. And my expectation for the class was I would stand in the front of the room, show my lecture slides, give my spiel, and the students would quietly take notes. But I was completely wrong. My students were raising their hands and asking questions from the very beginning. And these weren't surface level questions. These were deep thinking questions. And I had other students addressing those questions. And we had a whole discussion, even though this wasn't a giant lecture hall. And I was really taken aback by the degree to which Hunter College students are not just curious, they're really driven to get that knowledge. They really want to dive deeper, and they have the skill sets to make that happen. It's really exciting.